interesting aspect of bird watching is that you could leave the birds right where they are, come back in about hour and a half, and they'll still be there. They pretty much scope out their territory, and if nobody bothers them too much, they'll remain. Now, off in the background there, we see a couple of spoonbills, and unfortunately I didn't get to capture the male because he decided to fly away, but I did spot him all across on the other side of the reservoir. And they're really not much of social birds, too much. I'm actually quite surprised to see a couple of them in the same spot. Actually, you know what, now that I think about it, that bird in the shot, and let me zoom out, and the sun is so bright you can't even see the screen. The bird in the shot is actually a male, and the one in the back is a female, because you can't really see it too much, but underneath the wings he has different coloration, and that identifies him as a boy. You know, interesting quality of birds is that this guy thinks that I'm not gonna notice him. He thinks that he's just gonna blend in and everything like that. So let's see if you could spot him. Off among all those other birds in there, there's a different kind of bird that really doesn't belong. And that bird is called rosette spoonbill. Absolutely magnificent bird. Somewhat resembles flamingo a little bit. The only thing is, if you notice its beak, the trick to this sort of stuff is not to make noise. You know, the hardest part on my end is to develop the trust with the bird, because the bird, I mean, it knows that you're here, obviously. But the most difficult part is persuading the bird that you're not going to eat it. And so when it comes to wildlife videography, by the way, in case you're wondering, that's a girl. This time of year, the boys will have far more coloration on them. You know, all from the distance, I mean, it blends in with the other birds so much, it's virtually imperceivable. But the boys, what happens is, when it's time for mating season, they turn like pink. I'm talking about certifiably pink. And they have plumage, you know, like feathers. And off it goes. Their plumage is just spectacular. All sorts of colors and fluff. It's just remarkable. Oh wow, the microphone is so powerful that it's picking up a car that is literally a mile away. Wow. I mean, I knew this was a good microphone, but geez. The closest car is like a mile away, that way, over the water, over the wind, over all the humps and bumps in the trees and the wildlife, and the microphone picked it up. Oh, look at that. I'm gonna take it to a really cool spot. Let me pause and get back to you. Perched up on that tree over there, there's a whole bunch of anhingas. Anhingas are also known as the snake bird. They are found pretty much all across Florida, as far as I know. And normally what they do is, after hunting for fish, they find themselves perched up on top of trees just to dry themselves off, you know, in order to thermoregulate. See how anhinga stretches out its arms, or wings rather? So every single feather gets to dry. That's how they thermoregulate. They need to make sure that there's no algae buildup or anything like that, and they just sit there for hours and hours. Look up in the trees. There's a whole bunch of vultures in there. So the vultures that we spotted off in the distance, that's where they normally roost, between this tree and that tree. And so as many years as I've been coming to this park, I always see this. This is their favorite tree. The downside to vultures is they are extremely aggressive. You know, most people never think of a vulture as a bird of prey, but believe it or not, beyond this normally docile sort of thing, if you ever witness them fighting each other, they typically fight like their life depends on it. Especially in this park, right where the boat dock is, where we're actually heading eventually. They fight tooth and nail. I mean, there's like, time and again I come here and there's dead vultures, and you know, there's really nothing that hunts vultures per se other than other vultures. They're so vicious. There's a bunch of vultures here as well. And the reason why you see a lot of vultures is because people actually fish this lake. And in addition to my recording, I guess I am. In addition to, hey, that family of limpkins is back. In addition to all that, there's also a lot of the Florida sunfin plecos. And what tends to happen is when the pond dries up quite some, all those fish, they get trapped in pockets and they just have their pickings at it. I've been at other places during, you know, drought season, and it's quite something. They have a feast. Alright, so this is the same bird that you see there in the background. You know, they're peculiar little things. They, there's times and places where you could swim right next to them, and they just really don't care. But other times, you know, if you get anywhere near their general vicinity, they just freak out. I never understood why. Have an egret. Beautiful bird. And yet again, you see, the size doesn't matter. That little bird is just, it's like, you are not welcome here. Oh, somebody just got his ass kicked. Got a little bit too... One of those small white ibises just Kicked him out. It's kind of interesting with the birds, you know, they don't have any opposable thumbs, so they get themselves into a bit of a bind every now and then. There's the heron eating on something. From a distance, it sort of looks like a snake, maybe. There, right up there where you see that blue heron, man, that thing is panting, which is kind of interesting because all he has to do is just move into the shade. Look at him. It's like, oh, so hot, so hot. But he's a stubborn little bird. That's nature for you. Sometimes it just doesn't make any sense at all. Because shade is literally right there. But hear that call? Such a beautiful bird making such a disgusting noise. Oh. This is the beautiful part up here. So I felt it was important to come back and capture it. That being said, when one season is over, the other one begins. Sitting off in the background on that island over there is a very, very large alligator. And frankly, as much as I want to show you the alligator, I'm also absolutely, you know, for somebody that hangs around alligators on a regular basis, I know when to respect them. Well, obviously you have to respect them all the time, but some of them deserve a little bit more respect. Look at that guy. Really big. And you know, that size definitely commands respect, especially if he is out, you know, he is all huffed and puffed. You know, normally they huff and puff themselves when you know, they feel threatened. But this one is so big, naturally just sitting there in the shade. Let me zoom out. Come on, wind. And the hilarious thing is, if you look at the bird right next, that bird really, oh, look at that. Look how big, oh my freaking gosh, look at that. Look at, Jesus. It's a big boy. Wow. It's like, okay, that's as close. Look at that. And you know, the interesting thing is, when they get in the water like that, like he just did right now, their size, you know, they really, like, as a human being, you really lose sight of how big they truly are. Look at that. And he is gone just like that. All 9 feet of him, just like that. And the only thing that you see really is just, oh, that's a small head, it must be a baby, and there he goes. So this is the sort of flowers that you could look, but you cannot take with you. Normally, and I apologize for the bumpiness, with all the wind that's causing a bit of wake. Normally, all the lilies that you see in there, and I don't know if it's Nilambo or something Bufus. No, not Bufus. There's another one that's sort of like Nilambo. In the layman's terms, those are lilies, water lilies. And from what I understand, they are very, very fussy. Some of the seeds of Nilambo and the other sister plant, I guess, were found in ancient Egyptian tombs, and you could literally throw them in the water and they will eventually sprout. So the way those seeds are on those things, on the tips, after it's done blooming and everything like that, it forms like a bulb thing that looks like an alien creature from out of hell. And eventually, well, inside that bulb there's like little seedlet things, and so eventually it drops those seeds, and those seeds could float or they could sink, and there's really no reason or rhyme to it. It could sprout immediately, or it could take 1,000 years to do so, and it really wants to do it only in places where it feels like it. At work we've been planting them in various places, and they just either they really grow or they really don't, and it's very difficult with them. And in the deeper spots, like this, they have really, whoops, zoom it away. Let me swing the camera this way. They have really broad leaves, so kind of interesting the way it is. think I see one of those bulb-looking things. So let me see if I could get closer to it. Oh, well, look at that. We got a visitor. A big ass alligator, like a 9-footer or 8-footer, 8 inches. Normally, what you see is you look at the tip of the snout and the eyes, and you kind of gauge off of that if it's like 8 or 9 inches. And again, I mean, they're such masters of. Well, I guess I shouldn't bother him now, because this is his turf. The last thing I want is to piss him off. But the plan that I wanted to show you, without the alligator, is this right up here. Right there. That's what it is. That eventually blossoms into. Let me get myself out of here. This is his home in the middle of the alligator nesting season. So that eventually opens up and forms little lily things. Oops. Look at all the lily pads. Really cool. Come on. So the interesting thing about living in a place like this in Florida is that I'm so used to the alligators that I quite often stop paying attention to them, and it is very dangerous. You know, you actually have to force yourself to be on the lookout. It's very easy to be complacent, because as you've seen in that one little video that I've just shot, you know, I was pointing at something completely different, and that's it. Just like that, he came out of nowhere. A big ass boy. A big alligator. That's the sort of alligator that will eat you with great pleasure. And you know, whenever people say that, oh, alligators don't eat people, blah 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 blah, horse shit. And yes, I'm gonna use that word here, because people get so complacent about alligators because they're used to. Oh, look at that. Hopefully the camera picked it up. That was a really big, while I was looking in the other direction, hopefully camera got it. That was a turtle called soft shell long-nosed turtle. And again, that's another thing. People get complacent with them too. It is very easy to kind of trust the nature, to be respectful of the human being, and they don't care. On my finger I have a scar. I was scuba diving off in one of the lakes, taking a class or something like that, and the instructor was, you know, teaching students, and I brought some food with me to feed the fish, of which there's plenty over there. And lo and behold, one of those turtles came and lashed on my finger, and that was not a pretty thing. And now for the rest of my life I'll have a big scar on my finger. So you do have to respect the wildlife. It is here, it was here before you were, and it will be here after you're long gone.